we voted on as a board of three.
Okay, I'm gonna call this council meeting to order. Everyone, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Davis,
Here.
Councilman Mike Cooley,
Here.
Councilwoman Kathy Beck. Here. Councilman Jake Footy. Councilman Jerry Footy.
Here.
Has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda? If so, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as read?
I'll make a motion. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes to approve. The first one was a special meeting on 11/15/2023. So everybody had a chance to review those. But basically, we dealt with a variance and a well service contract to get the guys started on our wells for maintenance. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting on 11/15?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move on to minutes from November 7th meeting, council meeting. Are there any questions, discussion? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the November 7th council meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from November 7th council meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to financials. We have deposits in the amount of $1,408,848.79. Accounts payable in the amount of $144,461.72. Payroll in the amount of $40,868.96, and transmittals in the amount of $44,122.02. Are there any questions? I have a question. How come we're so high on deposits?
That was the reimbursement for the grant for $966,000 that came in.
That's for the Spring Street project?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The special purpose tax that.
Any additional questions, other questions on financials? Do I have a motion to approve all financials as read?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Correspondence? Thank you. Items from the public. Okay, we'll move on to council comments. I have one, the Helping Hands is putting on a Thanksgiving dinner. If you don't want to, they have plenty of room for sit down at the community center, and, or you can call and they're doing home deliveries. So I just want to make that aware to the public. Okay, we'll move on to reports from departments. Town Hall. Like we have a special event application for the 40th annual ice fishing derby.
Hi.
Hello.
Yep, so I'm getting it in early so that we're not on a time constraint. So the insurance isn't on there yet because we're too far out.
Okay.
I'm still 2 months away from the event, so once that's solidified, I'll bring in liability insurance that labels the town on there as well. Other than that, I mean, yeah, 40th. And there's fish in there.
That helps.
I know. Like,
Crazy.
Fish in there.
That'll be a pretty busy year for that. I think.
I'm hoping that it's a comeback. I've had, I'm up on registrations already. I mean, people are already registering online.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Are you getting a lot of inquiries then too?
yes. Inquirers and, sponsorships is extremely up this year because it's the 40th. So, unfortunately, I don't have a flyer until, December 1st. But on December 1st, I have because I've given, the sponsors till that time so that they can be on
Yeah,
marketing material,
great.
since it's still a month and a half from.
Well, I think you should come back to the first council meeting in December and talk about your sponsors.
Perfect, yeah, because I mean, I got some that aren't even in this valley that gave me
All right, that's
a
great. to
substantial
hear.
amount. So, but yeah, no, at 40th, and just so everyone knows, there's like 28,000 fish in there. There's a lot of fish in there, so.
All right. Any questions or concerns about the Aspen
No,
from my department?
yeah, I have one for, the police. But I had asked, because it's been, 2 years now, but just having your presence drive through there periodically keeps, since I did attach the liquor license to this for that open container, it just keeps that kind of out of a minimum that they don't get too rowdy.
No problem.
Okay,
And just like, and another thing to help monitor is people, will not be allowed to enter from Pick Pike through Arnold's Place.
Okay.
So.
perfect. Any other discussion? Do I have a motion to approve this special event for the 40th annual ice fishing derby?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have your special event.
Perfect. And I'll bring the insurance and, we wait to do that till about 4 weeks out, just in case.
Okay. Do you have a date or are you holding that back?
It's January 20th and 21st. And this year, and since this happened and with COVID and everything, we have a lot of food trucks that have, joined the chamber. And you have to be a chamber member to be out there, but, I have the Legion will be out there and then, some of our food trucks to give them like a winter, because they're not all gonna be out in like December, January, trying to,
Make sure all your food trucks.
they all have permits.
Okay,
I mean, I'm the one that brought that to the council, but yes, they all.
okay.
I make sure that they all are, have the permits and everything of that sort. And then, I believe the Legion or the Sons of what will be coming for their, because they're gonna sell liquor out there. So they should be submitting a permit for that. And then I got the open container, so that.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. I'll see you.
We'll move on to the
Thank you.
Saratoga Carbon County Impact Joint Power Board invoice for 11/20 of 23. Okay, this is a loan payment. And it's in the amount of $108,676.97. It's for the water transmission lines when they put the wells in. And we didn't have time today. I wanted to get a total on how much was left on it. I don't think you had time to do that, did you? So the next council meeting, I'll have that up to date. But this is paid yearly. It was put aside in the budget. So if I could get a motion to go ahead and pay this loan payment in the amount of $108,676.97 to the state, Wyoming State Lands and Investment Board.
I'll make a motion to pay this invoice.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay,
Please.
that's all from the town hall tonight. Okay, we'll move on to the police department. Mike?
Thank you. Start out with our call report. The total CAD calls since our last council meeting was 140. Total CAD calls went through the office. I thought for the number of phone calls and the citations that were written or issued during that time, I'd just start doing those for the prior month at the first month's or the first council meeting of the month, if that's okay with the council. That way we get, I think, a better look month to month instead of every couple of weeks. We can kind of line it out a little bit better. The other things that we have on the agenda today were we've already talked about the troubles we're facing in dispatch with the employees. I did have 2 employees that had reached their professional dispatch status with the state. And administration's passed, that would have came with $1 an hour raise increase. But we have met with the treasurer. I've spoke briefly with the mayor with the things that are ahead of us the next little bit, money wise and everything. It's really not in the budget at this particular point in time, I think, to go forward with those. I'd like to do them as soon as we can. I've talked with one of the dispatchers, the other one I wasn't able to talk to today. One of them is going to part-time status right now, so it's a little bit different for her. But she understands where we're at. Not particularly happy, but certainly understands kind of where we're at right now, because we are going to have to hopefully put some more people on. There's some training issues, things like that. So our training costs that are associated with that, not only that, with the MOU that we've kind of previously talked about. So I just can't in good conscience right now, knowing the money pitfalls that we're facing in the police department, ask for that. And I've been granted a little bit of grace with the dispatchers involved temporarily. Have to revisit that at some point, I guess. But for right now, they understand where we're at. So with that being said, I've only got a couple of things to do with, I've got a gentleman from Encampment that has recently moved to the area. He had spent some time in the Coast Guard. One of his job duties in the Coast Guard is he was a communications officer. And he also was in with that job duty as he was in a communication center where they ran a hotline and did some military type dispatching. It's not exactly the same, but he's got a little bit of a background into it. We've gone through the interview process. We've gone through the psychological. The only thing that I'm lacking right now really is just to get him through the actual pre-employment physical. We haven't been able to get that. So on the thought that he goes through that well, I would like to get the council's approval to offer him a job and hire him. We'd start him out at $19 an hour. That's a little bit above the normal pay scale at 17, but he also won't be taking the insurance from the town. He's got coming from the military. He's already got insurance. And that would, his name is Joshua Matthew. I've also got 2 other employees that are previous dispatchers. They're both seasoned. However, we're not being able to get those folks through the psychological evaluation until after the first of the year. I reached out to the state to ask if we could have any real grace period on that temporary dispatch certification. And there's just nothing in the rules that will allow that to happen. However, after some discussion, both at the state level and with the Carbon County Sheriff's Office, I think we've got a little bit of a stopgap that we can offer, and that is to put these 2 individuals to work as call takers. They wouldn't have all the responsibilities nor the authority as a regular full-time dispatcher. We'd have to limit some of those duties. They would take the original call taker, get all the information, and then instead of being able to give direction, like if it's a medical emergency, be able to give instructions. If it's anything related to like a criminal matter where we had to use the state computer, which they wouldn't be able to do without that temporary certification, we could then transfer that call after paging it, like if it's an ambulance or fire, we could then transfer that call to the sheriff's office. One of the things that we're having an issue with right now, we talked about the VPN or the gateway with the equipment in order to be able to page for encampment, fire and ambulance. That we're not going to be able to do, even if we were to get everything in place today, will not be able to install that equipment until after the first of the year. So it is something we need to address, but we're going to have a little bit of a time to do that. I thoroughly anticipate that after we, this next couple of weeks, once we get the psychological evaluations done, we can then get their temporary dispatch certification. They won't have to transfer those calls to the sheriff's office. One other thing that we can do in order to cut costs just a little bit, instead of having the sheriff's office run with those calls all the time, or in the case that the sheriff's office is busy, then we'll make arrangements to call in the 3 dispatchers, the 1 part-time or the 2 full-time dispatchers. We can call them in and we'll have somebody on call during that period of time. So they're just in town, so it'd be just a matter of minutes before they could get here. So that would be 2 call taker positions. Those would be temporary positions until we get the rest of their required testing and stuff done. That would be Tana Davey and Tiffany Moore. Like I say, they both have worked in the field before. Tana's got well over 20 years experience. Tiffany worked for the sheriff's office and actually Saratoga Police Department for a period of time too. But since they've been out of it for a little while, we'd have to go through the whole entire hiring procedure. Those 2 would be hired at $17 an hour. That is also based on our pay scale that we adopted here a couple months ago. With the council's permission, I'd like to be able to go ahead and offer those jobs contingent. The call taker's position, we'll get those worked out, but that'd be contingent on the rest of their, for Tana and Tiffany, their psychological, keep them on their psychological and their medical evaluations done. And then with Mr. Matthew, just the medical stuff that needs to be done in order to meet the rest of the post requirements.
Questions,
Nope.
issues?
No.
Do I have a motion to hire Joshua Matthew? He'll be a full-time dispatcher
He will be he's be a candidate for full-time trainee right now, but yes.
at the rate of $19 an hour. And Tiffany Moore and Tana Davies, I'm sorry, I had a line. As call takers temporary and move into part-time dispatchers at $17 an hour.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, before you go any further, Mike, I want to back up. Does the council have any questions on why the pay raises are not being handed out right now for these 2 that completed their training? The 2 dispatchers? Okay.
Yep.
And we'll move on to, well, go ahead, Mike.
The next one up for me is the MOU. We had previously discussed that. If you have any other questions, we could readdress it, but just to let you know that the town attorney did go through and approved the MOU as well, as it was written. So didn't have any issues with it. So this will, from the 20th, it'd be 60 days from the 20th that we would be under the guise of this memorandum of understanding, and $75 an hour basically to reimburse the sheriff's office for Carbon County Sheriff's Office dispatchers that are either on site or in the case, as we just talked about with the call takers, they're doing the job from the sheriff's office. We would try to, do best we can to limit those. That rate does go up. If their dispatcher goes into overtime, that rate does go up to $125 an hour. So we'll be watching that very closely to make sure that we can keep those costs at a minimum. We certainly hope to, with the addition of the call takers and then as we go into the temporary dispatchers, that and Ms. Anderson, our town clerk, is still a part-time dispatcher as well and has offered to do a little bit of time too. So we hope to keep those costs to a minimum. We're unable to utilize them as much as we wanted to originally. They've got some staffing issues, just with time off that was already scheduled for the next 2 weeks. So we're going to be a little bit tight with overtime and everything for the next couple of weeks. But after that, we should be able to work out a really decent schedule with them. Those figures that I had given to you earlier were kind of based on going out 90 days because I didn't want to come back to the council and with one more, look where we're at now. So those figures that I did give you were based on 90. The MOU is actually for 60 days. We can up it again if we need to, or in quite the opposite. If we get to a point where we're self-sufficient again, then we can with a written notification, we can cancel the memorandum of understanding as well.
Any questions?
I do have a question, Mike. So we're looking at, we just provided approval for hiring Josh, Tiffany, and Tana.
Yeah.
And we've got the MOU in place. Have we put together sort of a best case scenario, worst case scenario in usage in these 60 days pending their completion of their training and meeting all the
Let me
requirements?
go back to those original. I had them out. I apologize for this. I just actually have it in my hand.
Even just like a rough order of magnitude would be helpful so that we have an idea of what we're anticipating in expenditures and.
Yeah, I had it written down on there. We were talking about, I want to say it was about $36,000 to the sheriff's office, and that was building in a little bit of overtime just in case. And then we
Have
had,
been in our minutes.
no, I don't think I had it.
Did we mention a number in the last?
Yeah, in the last council
We
meeting.
did talk.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought there was a number mentioned.
I think you have your copy. I'm sorry about that. Here. It was $36,725 that we anticipated going out to 90 days to the sheriff's office. I was figuring at that point in time that the police department, outside of our normal paid full-time staff that's still on, we would be covering about 608 hours for a total of 14,568. That was based on $20 an hour, and there was a little bit of overtime worked into that as well, anything over 40. So we were up to 51,293 at that point. Then for training for the new dispatchers, for both of them, I was figuring 6 weeks at 40 hours a week and a little bit of overtime worked in that. That was figured originally at $18 an hour. We didn't know that Josh was going to be a little bit higher with the insurance. But at that point in time, it came to $9,315. So we were right about $60,000. Take a look at it. We're going out that 90 days. Now there is, I can't say for sure. We never know how somebody's going to go do with training. That 6 40-hour weeks, I think we can, as long as he's receptive, I think that falls within the FTO program or the field training program that we have for our 6 weeks of training. So we can always cut that back a little bit if he's excels in some areas. But, you know, I just can't say that, you know, would happen, but at the same time, I mean, transversely, I mean, we might get into a problem where we've got an issue and might have to stretch out training just a little bit too in order to get him through it.
And when you brought this up last meeting, one of the things I requested is that we get a plan in place, even if it's I mean, we should always have sort of a mitigation plan in place so that we're able to assess. I mean, we're addressing the issue now. Fortunately, we have some good applicants. So I want us to continue to look at ways that we can plan ahead or see if there's some alternate routes that we can go for balancing out this responsibility.
Absolutely. And that's something that the sheriff and I have talked about. We haven't gotten a chance to actually sit down and start making plans because we've also got another dispatch center in Carbon County as well with the Rollins Police Department. So those are things that going forward, I don't have any plan for you today, but it is something we'll definitely be working on as well.
I mean, I'm glad we've got the applicants and this is a good, it's sort of we're responding and addressing the issues, but we want to be mindful of the challenges.
Absolutely. And then on the next item that I have talking about that VPN gateway, that is something that hopefully we can put in place. You know, if we start planning for it now, we can get the equipment put in place after the first of the month or first of the year. If for some reason we were not able to go forward, the sheriff's office could pretty much do everything, not everything, but pretty much as far as radio traffic and paging from the sheriff's office. So, but I will continue to work with the sheriff and the sheriff's office to see where we can do going forward.
Do we know if we have any grant opportunities for that equipment for the VPN services?
Not anything that would be available that readily grant wise for the VPN right now.
Reimbursement or something
Yeah.
we can look at.
I actually have reached out to Motorola last week, actually, in order to try to get some stuff going for not just the VPN, but also some radio equipment and stuff as well for dispatch, not the car stuff, but for dispatch. So over the course of the next few weeks, I hope to have a little bit better idea of what might be available.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for the chief? Okay, thank you for your report.
Absolutely. I did want to address the VPN real quick as well too. So I need to meet with the sheriff a little bit more, but that if we could, and hopefully by the next meeting, maybe I can have a little bit better idea. But when I originally talked to the sheriff's office about this, he had talked about the possibility about doing some cost sharing on this VPN. As it stands right now, the equipment and installation is $19,145. By the next council meeting, I hope to have something in place where I can tell you what kind of a cost sharing, if any, because like I said, it was a brief conversation, but it was discussed. So hopefully we can address this and get things in place. So sometime right after the first of the year, we may be able to get this in place. If nothing else, it's always good to have redundancy built into an emergency system. And right now we don't have any. It's all coming from here. So I think that's it without any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, guys, we got back to town hall business. Earlier we had a public hearing on retail liquor licenses. And there was no one here from the public. The council had no complaints. So we have retail liquor license for the American Legion, Bella's Bristol, Malt, J.W. Hugetts and Company, Saratoga Resort, which is included with the Snowy Mountain Brewery, Valley Liquor, the Rustic Bar, and the Lazy River Cantina, and the Hotel Wolf. Is there any discussion on any of these liquor licenses? None? I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve the issuance of all of the liquor licenses as I read off.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, move forward, we'll go to the fire department. The main person for the fire department has wrestling practice tonight. Did text me with what is going on at the fire department. And right now, wanted to report that the Halloween walk went very well. They served hot dogs and chili to everyone. They are starting on the annual food drive here shortly. Food will be delivered on 12/20. We are expecting to deliver to 45 homes and elderly families. And if you have any questions about the food drive, you can send them. Please get in touch with Creed James with the fire department. And other than that, they have had a few minor fires at residents that are contained with minimal property damage. He doesn't have a number for the fire calls. And that was the police department report.
Do we know where we're supposed to drop off food? Or should we get a hold of Creed? Are they
He,
collecting in the past at the fire
I
department?
think there was actually a box here at
Grocery
one
store?
time. You could drop. So I'll see if Creed can, I will get a hold of Creed and tell him he needs to get that published, and
Yeah, just so that people know where to leave
Yeah.
their food.
that's what he sent me.
That's great, thanks.
I wish I had more to report on him. Okay, we'll move on to the recreation department. Yep.
Good evening. Just a couple of things to report for upcoming events at the gym. The first is I'm hosting a pickleball clinic. This is called an Improvers Clinic. This will be held on November 27th from 10 to 12. I have an instructor coming over from Laramie to offer some strategies to improve your pickleball game. I think I have about 8 people signed up so far, with some possibilities coming up from Rollins as well. So that's coming up. We've also got the Ugly Sweater Fun Run we're hosting on December 2nd, next Saturday, from about 10 o'clock to about noon approximately. We're partnering with the chamber with this, and we'll be serving hot chocolate afterwards. So that's coming up. So dig out your ugly sweaters and come on down. Finally, we've got some new hours that we'll be offering in December. Now that I've got some staff hired, we'll be offering open gym on Friday nights from 6 to 9. And then starting on December 9th, we'll also be offering some Saturdays sort of open gym hours from 12 to 4. That's what I've got to report from the rec department.
Thank you, that's good news. That ought to make some public people happy.
So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
And then you said you had something going for Thanksgiving? Is that official yet?
Well, we're closed on Thanksgiving, but the day after Thanksgiving will be open for kind of like drop-in hours from 12 to 4 and then 6 to 9. So just a couple of shifts to come in and walk off your pumpkin pie and.
Well, great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any questions for Kim? Okay, we'll move on to DPW. Mr. Emery.
So starting on number 15, these kind of 15 and 17 kind of wrap in a joint powers board update. So that there's an invoice for 22,000 that's related to the River Street project over here. And we discussed at the meeting that having it broke out by tasks So the sewer and storm waters in one part at the bottom for about 6K, and then the remaining balance is all water and sewer stuff. There was some confusion as to what part of that was approved at the meeting. Regardless, our end of it is the streets and sewer. I mean, we need to approve that part. You guys are good with paying it. And then I was hoping to hear back from the Joint Powers Board with some clarification on a motion. So I would prefer we wait until I hear on that before we approve any of the water and sewer stuff. I didn't get a clarification on that.
Emery's discussed this a little bit with me. My take on this is it should be all one lump sum. It's a River Street project, okay? It's the town and the Joint Powers Board, but to replace a water line up the middle of the street, we're gonna destroy the road, okay? Some of the question was of stormwater issues. Well, why would we not redo the stormwater and connect? I mean, there's stormwater in a couple of different places, but why wouldn't we go ahead and connect it and make it all one stormwater and drain it? And to me, it should be all one issue. Plus, we did receive 700 and how much?
700,000 in grant money for that
In grant
project.
money. So, I mean,
It's all coming out of the same pot eventually too. It's not like it's tax money and then water and sewer money. It's all gonna be special purpose tax.
if you would prefer to wait on that invoice, we can.
I mean, I'd like to approve we can do it however you guys want to do it. I mean, I'd like to approve at least the 6,000 for the stormwater, and then if the Joint Powers Board has any concerns with their water and sewer, if they don't, then we could just pay it. So maybe motion to pay it pending any changes from the Joint Powers Board on the water and sewer.
Well, we'll have to do it in two motions.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to go ahead and pay the 6,000 and some dollars for this, to
I'll make a motion to pay it.
Craig Copaz Engineering Associates for the stormwater drawing,
Streets,
The design.
yeah, the design for streets and
stormwater. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Do I have a motion now for me, once we get clarification from the Joint Powers Board, to go ahead and pay the additional 18,000 and some for the water and sewer part of this project?
15,755.
15,755?
Yep.
15,755.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So when you get clarification, let me know and go ahead and get that, or let Karina know so she can get the proper paperwork. Thanks, Emery.
No problem. Okay, number 16. So the baby pool, waiting pool, whatever we call it, kind of put a memo together. So we brought a guy up and went and kind of looked at multiple options as to what's to do with that thing. It is in pretty rough shape. So we looked at, total demo, rebuilding a new one. We looked at putting a fiberglass liner in it. And then we also looked at putting a vinyl liner in it. Regardless of whatever option we do, there's some structural repairs need made. And then also, if we're going to spend that kind of money on the water holding part of it, we should put a bigger heater in it to actually keep it warm, and then probably update the sand filter, just put a cartridge filter in it. That's a little bit easier to maintain. So originally, and then there was also the fourth option the memo talks about, which is just to demo it and increase the deck space, pour over it, and move on from the waiting pool. There are pros and cons to moving forward with either option. We continue to have that pool. It is more, water quality that we've got to worry about. It is more maintenance cost. It is a long-term, commitment, 25 years down the road, it's going to need replaced. The item or the repair option that we explored deeply was the vinyl liner option. Seemed to be the best fit for the size, how it's shaped. But it would include demoing a portion of the deck, demoing some stairs, and then fixing a few of the soft spots in the bottom of the pool. And that came out to, we're looking about 125 for that. And then there's going to be some additional costs to pour back the deck after the pool's all done being repaired. Originally, the special purpose tax had said about $71,000 to repair the wading pool, and then it had an additional 104 for deck repair, which was going to be done after the wading pool was fixed. So I don't think it's out of the question to think that going after COVID, everything's increased, that the project's probably $155,000 to $160,000 now to get it fixed and pour the deck back. And there's good arguments to go either way, I think, to eliminate it or to proceed with an option. So personally, I don't know if it's worth continuing to have it. I think it doesn't. Nation, I'm sure it gets use, but that pool also next to it is extremely old. And if we put a bunch of money into the wading pool, who knows what kind of event could happen with the big one. And if the big one's down, the wading pool doesn't matter how nice it is. We're not going to keep that facility open just because the wading pool's there. That's kind of where, when me and John were discussing where we're kind of hung up is if that big pool was brand new and it's got some leaks, it has some issues. So it's kind of like, is it worth, even though it's special purpose tax money we'd be spending, all the inflated costs, we're not going to get all the projects done on the list anyway. So if we spend money on that, it could be potentially taken away from some roads or water lines or whatever we could use it for. So it's kind of up to you. We could put a package together and put it out there and see what we get. I imagine that's where we're going to be is around 150, 160, and then getting somebody to even do it. And next spring, probably unlikely. So.
Is it possible to use the existing water supply for like a splash pad or something, an alternative there for that space?
So, we could do, anything's possible, right, with enough money. Splash pads are pretty a lot more high maintenance than a guy would think. Because you've got to have a holding tank and you've got to constantly be monitoring the water quality in the holding tank because it's getting splashed out. It doesn't always go back into the pool. Kids pee in the pool. I think your cost to do a splash pad would outweigh this by quite a bit. And the stainless steel structures, they're expensive. And then there's probably need to have it fenced off. And if I was going to do a splash pad, I probably would do it somewhere that wasn't attached to the pool just to kind of take advantage of, that's kind of a nice water thing that you can do that you don't have to worry about drowning. So you can use it year round, but they're super expensive and they're a circulatory splash pad where you've got an underground holding tank is very staff demanding. You got to check it like 3 to 4 times a day. And then when they get a plug in them, they're pretty hard to get out. We were actually, where I came from, we were looking at doing one and we went over to Dillon, Montana and checked out theirs. They have a circulating one. And that's where we got they have a big park staff that can stay on top of that. And that kind of scared us from doing that. And I don't think we would have the time to keep up on that.
And that's not maybe a good space for that.
I don't think there's not a lot of deck room there anyway.
Yeah, you'd almost want a splash pad that you could convert in the winter to an ice rink or something like that you see at malls, but we're talking about a lot of real estate there and a lot of money.
Yeah. Like a 80 by 60 is going to run you like 375 to 400,000 for a splash pad.
Oh, smart.
We'll just hook up the water hose and.
That's what I'm telling you.
Okay.
I don't know. It's up to you guys. Whatever you want to do, we can put a package together and see what it comes back at. Asked me, I would say increase the deck space. We got to fix the deck. It's pretty rough. Like it needs fixed. That's going to get done anyway. Eliminating those wading pool costs saves money going towards something else.
If it's possible, since we're spending the money and we're demoing the deck, then I would like for us to repair the plumbing where the slide used to be, because that was damaged, and maybe we pursue getting a slide, be able to put another slide in if we've got a water supply. The problem was the hose broke or the plumbing.
Oh, underneath the deck. Yeah, there's plumbing under there. That's
So
everything else.
if we're exposing that, then maybe we trade it off with the slide. That doesn't address baby pool, but I I agree that it doesn't seem all that logical to spend a lot of money on something that, and not address the big pool that has its own issues, right? So I would be okay with us demoing the pool so it's not a hazard, using that space for shade. And then look at how we still have to address taking that money, reallocating that money that was allocated specifically for that, right? So we can pursue that, but I don't know that we can get a slide out of it, but we can maybe deal with some of the decking issues
I think that's,
and repairs. That'd be my opinion.
I'm kind of the same.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so do I.
so just,
You know, this is getting out there. We can do it two ways. We can wait and get a little, see what the public thinks. But right now, and we all know that money's tight. We do have some special purpose tax money for this, something we can fall back on, but it's not gonna cover the whole thing. And that was voted on by the people. I kind of think maybe we ought to get a little input, and now that it's getting out in the open, see where the complaints start. If there are any.
yeah, that sounds good.
To me, if the pool was 10 years old, yeah, I could see doing it, but being 50, probably. You know, and we don't have any idea, how much was it really used when it was up and running, do you know?
It's used pretty regularly when it's warm. And we replaced the heater last year. And then the heater, one of the seals went out and had some issues with the heater and the pump and all that. So I think if it were there, it would get used somewhat. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't even be able to guess on the number of folks with small kids. But I mean, it's not safe. It's not usable.
Well, and it caused,
And it's a big gaping hole, which made me really uncomfortable because we have to put caution tape around it. So
It's not in a good spot.
no.
no,
Kind of off to the side, but it's in the main travel path from the door to the
Mhm.
deep end.
I mean, if we could provide some shade there, and we've got other things to address, but
What's a slide run?
It really depends on whether you go a curly Q with the tube. I
it's
mean,
just a regular.
anything that says pool, I mean, we just did looked at buying a zip line
Yeah,
not that long ago, $15,000. Rock climbing wall, 6 feet wide, 14 feet tall, was $25,000. So
I can look, we bought a slide. We bought a slide to replace the one that we demoed, but didn't have a water supply. We had gotten it with grant money. So I can go back and see, because we had,
what happened to that slide?
we just canceled the order
Oh.
and used it for other equipment. So that, I mean, we don't have a slide in a storage somewhere, but I think it was like $3,000. I don't think it was that bad.
how long ago was that?
2 years ago.
That's maybe 5.5, 6
Yeah,
now.
maybe double.
I would think bringing a water source across there wouldn't be that big a deal, being you're tearing the deck out anyway.
Yeah.
If it's right there. We have to
There was
call-
just a little stub up there that broke, and it was a small line that fed it because you need that supply. It's built into the slide. And because it broke and we were using a water hose to,
And if you're
Run
gonna
it.
replace the deck, replace the whole water line, and that way it's
yeah,
not an issue down the road.
yeah.
Yeah, and we'll look at all that. And then I can call I think it's the Department of Ag, I think, that is kind of weird, that regulates the pool stuff. in the
Yeah.
county. Just check with them on the regulations and because there's with diving boards and slides and everything, there's all space requirements, depth requirements, all that too.
before we make a command decision, let's do a little more research
Yeah.
Talk to the
and
public
see
a
if
little
we
bit.
can come up with an alternative to help mitigate, losing one thing.
Yeah.
A cheaper way to mitigate something out.
Yeah.
Council in favor of that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to take into consideration what you've provided us so far, but pursue further options on not restoring the baby pool and see what we can do in the demo.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you have it. Thanks, Emery.
We're in 17, River Street update. So now we got the grant, we're kind of finalizing the scope of this water line kind of street rehab project we've got over there. At the Joint Powers Board meeting, we had a discussion kind of about the scope and how, I don't want to use the word wisely, but how we're using the money and all the grant money, special purpose tax money, the total budget in itself. And we kind of talked about maybe not tearing up the whole road. There could be a decent alternative that would be more cost responsible and still achieve the same goal, which would probably be looking at, instead of ripping all this up, to bringing in all the road base without, digging all the way down and doing a serious amount of work. It would make more sense to probably do like a mill and overlay and then do the storm drain work alongside that. Would probably save quite a bit of money. So that's kind of the final scope is where we're at, is probably doing a mill and overlay, doing some stormwater work, and then we'll do the water line replacement along with it. Some members concerned, about wanting to get, same thing, more special purpose tax money we're using can take away from something else. So make sure we're just getting the most bang for our buck. So that's the route we talked about going, is doing like a mill and overlay and a little bit of stormwater work. So if you guys don't have any issue with it on the, on the storm and street side, that's kind of the route that we're going to move forward with, buttoning up the rest of the design. Is, you guys have any issues?
No.
That hopefully get it out the bid here, probably around the end of the year is the plan.
How much costs a mill and overlay compared to?
The full rebuild. So we're thinking, Craig's kind of finalizing it right now. We're coming from when we put in the grant application, where it's around like 2.9, we're going to be around like 2.4-ish in there. It's quite a bit. I mean, it's $500,000, if not more probably. Just because the hauling in all the road base and then getting it compacted and stuff, that's a lot of the cost. So.
But we are still working towards storm drain
Yeah,
all the way down through there,
yeah.
which it needs it. Most definitely.
Yeah, that's what they raised concerns if that was, if that was necessary, if we need to do that right now. I think it is. So I'd like to continue down that process. We've got a lot of it designed.
And
That's set over there.
I think it definitely is worth going forward with, because we caused issues with the storm drain on the last part of the project. Was missed by some engineers and stuff like that, but I think we need to pursue the drain. Anytime we do a project, if we can better the whole entire project with some work, I think we're better off to do that.
Well, that's the key to making the pavement last too.
Right.
It will, for sure.
Then that'll kind of be a system that if we, in certain spots, we'll be able to tie onto in the future with other roads and stuff as well.
Yeah.
It's not just a valley pan and a French drain. I mean, it's an actual storm drain addition.
Yeah. I would say move forward in that position.
Yeah.
That would be my
Okay.
feelings as well.
Do you want that in a motion, or are you just gonna pursue forward with?
I'm good with that because we'll have final design. There'll be contract docs and everything.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, we'll move on to, you just remain at the podium, to the Water Sewer Joint Powers Board.
So that was a lot of the things at the last meeting that were discussed was the cost use for the River Street project. And then as well as the invoice that we talked about earlier. And then they're still kind of working on some ordinances and looking at another a sewer line project. With the road project we're working on, the River Street project, possibly the pool stuff. We'll be a little bit out on doing another special purpose tax project for a little bit. That'll have to accumulate for a little bit as those things get paid out. So it wasn't a ton on that. We've kind of been working with them to get that well service agreement started or get that well service thing kicked off. So December 4th is hopefully the big mob day for the well service. So we'll have wells offline for a few days at a time, and it'll be interesting to get those cleaned out and see what they look like and kind of maybe develop a maintenance plan going forward after we get that data.
They haven't been looked at since they've been in operation.
Yeah, 3 was looked at in 2019 and that's it. But it wasn't serviced. It was just, measured and inspected. And the rest of them have been 2009, I think, is when they turned over to the well, somewhere around there. So it's been a minute.
Oh,
So
that's good.
yeah,
This is a good project.
this will be good. And then we'll know a lot. That'll tell us a lot. Pump testing and stuff too when we get that done.
Any other questions for Emery on? Okay. We'll move on to the planning commission, Mr. Emery.
McCall, did you want to come up here and join on the? So at the last meeting, McCall brought up an opportunity that we have to have the EPA come in and take a look at the old police department down over here and see what's possible. If that is a potential site for possibly some Brownsfield funding to help clean up some of that area. And it's a pretty wide assessment. It does economic impacts, it does hazards, everything like that. So I will turn it over to her. She probably has more detail on that.
So yeah, I reached out to the Wyoming DEQ and they have a program, which is basically, it's called the Community Assessment Grant. And they will come in to get approval of your project, but they will come in and assess whatever potential brownfield project you have to confirm that it's actually a brownfield, that there's some sort of contaminants there. And then if it is approved or it is deemed toxic in some way or brownfield, then they go through and they do a phase 1 and a phase 2 study of the place. They get the history of it. If there's known toxic waste or toxic contaminants, then they, will deep dive into those. And then given those results, they can help with cleaning up the facility. And then they also have a bunch of just community resources as far as the whole visioning workshop and what does the community want to see this property become, or they can do feasibility studies. So if the town says they want to turn it into, retail space with apartments on it, is that an investment we want to do? So they can kind of help us vision what the rehabilitation of this would be, and then help with community engagement, evaluating the existing infrastructure, if it's a building that we want to keep, code evaluations if something in our code needs to change. But really, they have seems like a lot of resources to help us redevelop that property however we would want to do it. So they assess if it's a brownfield, they will help with the cleanup potentially if it's a brownfield, and then help with the revisioning of that space. And so this is a grant that the DEQ has. So it's federal money that DEQ has, and they have their own contractors, which is a company called AIRS. And so really it would be free to us as a community. We would just basically agree to partner with them. If it's approved. Yeah.
If it's a brown space.
Yes.
No, the assessment grant can be approved regardless
Yes.
of whether it is one or not, but to actually get the money to rehabilitate the area would be based upon the results of the assessment.
Yes.
Oh.
So this would all be services free to us. We don't have to do any sort of matching. There's not any paperwork or invoicing or anything. They take care of all of that because it's a grant on the federal level for the state. And so we just have to agree to let them in. Someone told me they were like.
And why do we think it's toxic? I'm just wondering where all that's coming from.
Well,
Oh, doesn't necessarily have to be toxic. So traditionally a brownfield is, like hazardous waste, but it could be something as simple as asbestos. It could be just the fact that it's a
The clear.
Unusable.
The clear wheel
It's
tank.
unusable space, so it's part of.
Currently unusable.
Yeah, but the water treatment plant, how there's still a tank there and cleaning that up is gonna be, I think, a little bit complicated. The police building could have asbestos or just lead pipes or like old stuff there. So it's just the fact that it's a property that is, as they call, like stuck in the mud, that we can't do anything with it. It costs money to kind of do something with it. So it would help as far as community revitalization or economic development to help the community to clean that space up and for us to be able to use that property since it is town property.
Yeah, they might come back and say, no, there's nothing wrong with it, it's your.
But then we know that if we
But then-
did want to pursue
Yeah.
it, then it should be a lot simpler to either use those buildings or demo those buildings or whatever we want to do.
Did you share this with the planning zoning
Yes, we
commission?
talked about it last week.
Everybody,
Yeah,
they're making the suggestion, you're coming here to make the suggestion
correct.
to us to pursue, contact DEQ and schedule a time for them to come
So
check it out.
The process that would happen going forward is they have a list of questions that we would submit back to them, and then they submit a form to whoever is part of their approval process. And they said that Carbon County is one of their target counties for the state as far as doing cleanup projects for this grant that they've got. And so when whoever is approving these forms gets back to them and says, yes, this is a site that we want to pursue, then they would come out and start their evaluation process. And I've told that initial step kind of takes a while. So maybe like spring of next year, they would hear back on whether or not this project was approved.
Yeah, it's a slow process, like it ain't gonna happen tomorrow by any means.
But it's free to the town and we're not obligated to do anything once they give us the report on evaluating those buildings. It's just a tool for us to have. And so then when we do someday decide should we ever want to either redevelop that space or make it green space or, do something along the river there, have that information kind of.
I have a question though. You say we're not obligated, but if they do, say they did come in and find something, then we could be obligated to clean that up, whether we make their list or not, correct?
That's a pretty good question. I think there's a possibility that covenances could be put on it at some point if there was something super toxic, like say if you had a depleted gas station that had like a leaky tank or something, they'd come in and say, hey, no groundwater, no drilling, no digging any deeper than like 8 feet. And those could end up on there. I don't know what would come of there in the ground, maybe something with the building.
Yeah. Could we find out if there are repercussions if we open this Pandora's box? I mean, I'm just wondering, same question is if they deemed it toxic and we don't want to pursue the grant or we don't receive that funding or they don't receive the funding to, I don't know, do something about it, would we need to put fencing around the area so it's not accessible or,
Yeah, I can ask.
if we just find out what the repercussions are down the road?
I can see where we could end up liable without nothing to pay for it is what,
That's a good concern, I think.
yeah.
You wouldn't think that would happen. You'd think you would make the list if they found something, but
Yeah.
it makes you wonder.
I mean, I appreciate you doing the research and finding this resource. And I think that it's a great thing to pursue. And we can make arrangements easily with DEQ to come out and do their inspection and assessment and all of that. But I think it's worth knowing the downstream effects.
Right.
Just a little detail maybe before we do.
How long did it take you to get that information? Because you and I talked about this quite some time ago.
We talked about it, I think in July or August, and I had played phone tag a little bit with one of the natural resource analysts. And so it took us a while to link up. And so I just talked to her this last month. But I now have her email address and she's followed up with me after the planning commission meeting. So now she's, I think, more connected because we got connected through a third party. And so I think there was kind of some.
I think it would be at least worth looking at their questionnaire and asking a few more questions before.
Well, it'd come down to whether if they find something, whether we're guaranteed money to clean that up.
Yeah.
Is what it would come down to.
Right.
If there's no guarantee on it, we're shooting ourselves in the foot if they find something and then we end up paying to clean it up.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can follow up with her on those concerns.
Yeah.
I'll just confirm that if it is found toxic in some way.
What if?
Yeah.
Can't,
There's just too many what ifs, right?
Right. And it was my understanding that, and like, that's what they're there for. And
Yeah.
that's when all this grant money actually, kicks in to
Yeah.
clean it up. But I can't say I'm 100% sure on that.
Yeah.
I will follow up with a more specific question of, if something toxic is found.
1 second. I honestly can't believe that they would find much because it's been a water treatment plant.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
that stuff is used in treating water. There may be a little oil spill or something over there, but that might happen anywhere. That could happen in a public street. But yeah, I think we need a few more answers. I have a question from the audience. You want to speak loudly, please?
Yes, my question is, and I just kind of flashed on, when the federal government comes in and says, hi, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. That's all I have to say about that.
That's why we want to do a little more research.
Yeah, I think sounds good.
Sure. Okay, I can follow up and then bring more specifics back.
Thanks, McCall.
Thank you. Nicole.
Thank you.
Then we also have a term limit up for Chia Valdez is one of our planning and zoning commissioners, and she has submitted a letter of interest to the mayor for being reappointed. We would like to see that happen, if you guys would so allow it.
Do you want to read the letter? Do you want, Chia, do you want to, yeah,
Please come up.
you can, and then we can maybe give a backstory on, because I'm sure everybody's gonna be like, didn't we just appoint Chia to this commission a few months ago? So, maybe we can provide a little info there.
Mayor Davis and town council members, please accept this letter of interest on the Planning and Zoning Commission. As a third-generation Wyoming woman, as a resident of Saratoga since 2010 and serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission this past year, I feel it's a calling for me to continue seriously. And moreover, clearly there is a need for strong conservative voice on the commission that reflects the core values of this community. My focus shall be and continue our efforts on the much-needed infrastructure and affordable housing. Saratoga has been discovered. They have found us. Folks coming from different parts of this great country of ours, some who do not reflect the core values of this valley and want to change Saratoga to where they came from. I.e., back where I came from, this is how we did it type of mindset. And again, my need for, and my feeling for a need for a strong conservative voice to keep Saratoga authentic. So please accept this letter of interest to serve our blessed community on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Best regards, Chia Valdez.
I hope going forward that we can keep better records of when people do leave a board. And everybody seems to be in their bylaws, they have a staggered term, And right now, the most efficient one that I've been around is the joint powers boards. And I'm hoping our other boards can catch up with this. And I think they're running into the same issue, correct me if I'm wrong, on the airport board. There's some term limits up there that, am I correct, Dave? Yeah, so hopefully we can get some of these corrected. I know the airport board is addressing theirs. I don't know where the rec board stand, do you?
We're getting sort of caught up. We're just basically confirming when people left and when people were on. I don't think that there's any risk of it being wrong because we have a lot of new members, but we'll get it. We'll be able to report back.
Hopefully,
Confirm.
hopefully we can get this more organized where you wouldn't know when you come in because what's it been, 6 months since we approved you on the last time?
Something like that.
Yeah, hasn't been that long. So hopefully we can get these addressed and we won't be doing this.
But I have a question because I'm not really sure where all this came from in terms of the question of where this came from or the correct records, because I heard you when I came in mentioning, oh, we now have a secretary or full-time secretary. Lindy Globe was the secretary before in the planning zoning for several years. And I don't know if you know Lindy, but she takes copious notes and she used to be the Clark County clerk. So I'm sure, and I know her book is like 6 inches high. And I thought that she kind of gave that to Nancy. So I would
Yeah,
think
and I
records would
asked
be
her,
there.
she didn't know who was on the board before she was appointed.
Okay.
And
I
he
think I have
was
the
just there
documentation,
years before
but-
me.
Is that needed?
Is what,
Is that history needed? Because I think I have
that,
documentation the day that I was appointed as to who, when they were coming out and then who, because I believe, full disclosure, that it was something like, wasn't it not in your purview decide who was going to be where at what time? Like, okay, this is what control I have as the chairman and this is what I'm gonna assign. Is that not what happened?
so the way we decided it was, there was still Teresa and Lindy and I were still on the board. I talked to them about when they got appointed. And then we tried to fill in those spaces, so when they were appointed and if they knew if it was a term limit or a termination or who they filled. So I asked them personally if they knew who they were filling in. And so then I mapped out those and I knew that Tom Westring's term had actually ended in December, so we knew 3 of those spots, I believe, or maybe 4. And then from there, we just filled out what the other 3 spacings needed to be to keep it staggered. And then as those positions got filled, I just started at the top and assigned those positions. So I think Matt got one, and then
Joe,
Jodell, and then you. It was just in the order.
No, it was not, because Matt and Jodell were after me.
Okay, well,
And we, and you
Hey,
know what?
hey,
Yeah.
Yeah.
let's hold this down. We're not going backwards. We're addressing this situation. It sounds like McCall's getting a handle on it. It's not a big deal to reappoint somebody. It's just that I'm hoping we can get this corrected and we don't have this mistake
we,
again.
as a board, voted on it. I didn't decide it. I
Yes.
brought the spreadsheet to the meeting and I
That is
said,
correct.
does everyone agree that going forward, we follow this staggered position?
Yes.
And everyone had an opportunity to vote on it. So it
Yes.
wasn't me specifically.
But as a board, you're deciding what you're gonna do, appointing and not appointing. It'd be like us deciding our term limits ourselves and voting on it. We really can't do it,
Right.
you know? So you as a board cannot do that yourself without getting that okayed through the council. In theory, I wouldn't think. I could be wrong. But,
That is probably correct.
you know, and each person that drops off, say somebody quits, say 2 people quit, that first person that quit, the next person that you
The point.
appoint should fit that person.
Right.
And then if somebody comes after that, it should go in order.
Mhm.
Which is
Yeah.
what I believe that we have done. It was as
Yeah.
appointed.
Yeah, I don't know.
The spot.
But moving forward, that's the way we need to try to.
And these ladies have enough to do. I'm not gonna track each board member's policy. I don't think it's fair to them to track something on the board. I think we would go off the recommendation of the board is how that should be done. But any decisions that a board makes even the joint power board still has to come through the town council. So Yeah, I think we're good. Let's move forward in an orderly manner. I think you've got that started and we'll just do it that way. And I want to thank you for that, McCall, for at least we're trying to get it in an order
Yeah,
of some type. Okay?
I'll make the motion to appoint, to accept Chia's letter of interest to be reassigned to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Welcome back aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The thing is with boards, all these boards are volunteer and, you know, it's great to just have people showing interest and wanting to be on board. Do you have anything else, Mr. Emery?
TAPS meeting, January 17th, the Transportation Alternative Master Plan is, the next public meeting is the 17th of January. I think we hadn't decided what time it was gonna be yet, because we were fleshing out whether earlier or later it was.
5 or 5:30 there, and somewhere in that window in the evening.
Right,
Between 5 and 5:30.
yeah. But we'll, when we get closer, we'll have a defined time,
Okay.
but January 17th.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Okay, we'll move on to the Community Joint Powers. Board. Community Center Joint Powers Board.
It was brought up at the meeting that we needed to consider better control and security on the doors. So we did, Kim had put together a quote for us to review to upgrade the system on one of the doors. So there'll be better control of people coming and going. We're gonna pursue converting it to a fob system. So we did approve that and agreed to pay that. It was like $6,000 approximately.
Okay.
So Joe, I think, is working with Kim, and Joe's kind of like working on putting that together when that installation will happen. And we'll report that back to everybody so everybody's aware. Our next meeting is December 11th at the community center at 4:30.
Okay. So I want to remind you that we have the best security there is right there because they're supposedly on patrol.
They are, yeah.
They are, we
and
see them on the
they're the
camera.
ones, they're the ones to reach out to first. I think they're doing a good job, so. Okay, we'll move on to the Recreation Department.
Kim announced the ugly sweater and pickleball, and we're looking at, we still need volunteers for events. So if folks are interested, please contact Kim. Working on events and programs for 2024. Talked about the meet and greet, providing the community an opportunity to come and check out the facility and meet Kim. So we'll get some more information on that. And the doors were discussed at that meeting. And our next meeting, we've got 2 positions open still, out of town folks. We will be able to tell you what term, what the
Right.
extension of your term.
I have a question. How's your bylaw read on that? If we can't get anybody from out of town, can we open it up to other townspeople?
No, it does specify who can sit on that commission with stipulations on where they live. It doesn't limit, it doesn't say, there's no verbiage there that says if you can't find people out of town, then you can do it in town or vice versa. So if there's a way for us to update that and.
Would you, if the council approves, I would like you to send an email to Kylie asking her opinion on that portion of the bylaw. Yeah, because I think we could probably find other people in the community that might want to set that board. That says out of town position, maybe not, maybe it won't gain us anything, but it would open it up. But if you could send Kylie an email on that,
Sure.
council approve that. It doesn't need to be a motion, but.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I'll get some information and include everybody on that.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the Saratoga Airport Advisory Board. And I'm going to call on Dave Worthington to come up and give us a report. because I wasn't at the last meeting, and I apologize, I haven't had a chance to catch up. So you would please come up and tell us what was discussed at the airport board meeting, if you can.
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm honored that you asked me to come up. A few things that were discussed up there was the sewer line. What they're gonna do, there's several options, so that is still on the table. And we also talked about the minimum standards. We're in the process of changing them, or the board is, and special thanks to Lad Sanger, because he's the one that's writing it up and spearheading it. We're moving in the right direction. And I'm happy to report that.
Any other concerns or anything that the airport board had? Other than, the normal.
Yeah, they talked about possibly the landing fees, under just that. What the FBO is doing. I'm just a hangar owner, but I can assure you that most of the hangar owners are real pleased that the board is working, or the advisory board is, to benefit everyone, the town, the FBO, the airport, and the hangar owners.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The airport board next meeting is December 11th, 2023 at 3:30 PM here at the town hall. I see no one's here from the South Central Emergency Medical Service. I did not receive an update of any type. So their next meeting is December 18th, 2023 in Hannah, Wyoming. And I think they always meet at there where the ambulance is at. So, is there any new business to be brought before the town? Seeing none, I will, ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for call. Thanks, Leah.
Thanksgiving.
Bigfoot. Only had the Daily Times here tonight. Call. Did you ever have a chance to meet with her?